Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY! A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now, drives in low, throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody. Welcome in on this Friday. Thank you so much for being with us. And as you heard Kirk Cignetti say, he wins. Well, he won last night as Indiana didn't have to go far for an opponent playing in their own spring game. We'll talk about that. We'll hear from some of the participants, including Kirk Cignetti. We'll also have a wrap-up of that from myself and Shannon Griffith. That was a little surprising in a good way. But plenty to get to. Bob Kravitz from bobkravitz.com will be stopping by, as well as Zach Osterman from the Indy Star. And plenty to talk about there, whether it's the ongoing NCAA portal, the NBA playoffs. But who's going where in the portal is the bigger situation. Of course, Indiana, a gigantic weekend for them as far as visits. I think that there are a total of 4 coming in this weekend for Indiana. They've already had 2 that have been here. So it's been a busy week, and will be a busy week for Indiana until they've got 4 spots officially to fill right now. I know a lot of people think that Kanan Carlisle is in the slot. We'll find out. Don't forget, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore Honda. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. Invest in new and used vehicles. When you're out looking for that new vehicle, that's where you go. Please support those who support us. And the Chop Shop, of course, home to the men's and women's basketball coaches shows, in addition to what will now be the Kirk Cignetti show or Indiana football show coming up here in the fall. Looking forward to that as well. So that will be fun. But Chop Shop, you're a butcher, baker, no matter where you live. Great dining in experience, or you can take some incredible meat to go and grill it like I would like to this weekend. But it's going to be kind of, a little chilly out there. But you want to talk about a temperature drop after the spring game last night. And boy, that storm rolled through. Son, I was driving home and I could literally feel it drop, and then look down at the temperature gauge, and I could literally watch it fall almost. But little spring showers, bringing those Mayflowers, as that was a pretty good storm last night. So we had that going for us, which was nice. Hope everyone's doing well today. Looking forward to chatting it up. John, of course, is on assignment, so you've just got me. But welcome aboard. We appreciate you. Everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline as well. And Fred over in Easton, Donald down in ATL, Las Vegas, Larry Shenanigans from Southern Wabash County, Bob from Georgetown, Heath from Danville. Mike says, let's see how many thumbs up we can get today for JC and JTP and ISB. I agree with that. Hit that button. And while I'm thinking about it, if you're listening to this whenever and however, make sure you're a subscriber on YouTube especially. It helps us out. I think we're about to cross over the 5,000 mark, which is cool. But appreciate everybody. Don't forget the annual IU Alumni Association of Greater Evansville Golf Scramble coming up. That's on May 20th. And it is going to be held again at the beautiful Sultan's Run Golf Club in Jasper, Indiana. It's a 8 a.m. to noon event, so they get you started. You could take off just half a day and go out there and get a great day of golf in. But with any questions, reach out to Kyle King at Kyle, KYWKING at indiana.edu, or you can reach him at 812-677-1119. Not sure if we have that up there, or I can put that up on the screen or not. Not sure what John left me as I scroll through. I think I do right there. There you go. If you're following along on the YouTube, as the kids call it, there you go. At all the information right there. Sultan's Run again. Kyle King, he's the chapter president. KYW King at indiana.edu is the easiest way to remember. Or you can just look up Evansville, Greater Evansville IU Alumni Association, and it'll pop up as well. But I'm looking forward to being out there. And but also I'm looking forward to it being May 20th, because that means it will be warmer without question. So looking forward to that. How's everybody else doing on this Friday? Lots of comments. We appreciate you guys. John on as well from drenched southern Brown County. Yeah, it's drenched, all right. There's no question about that. I mean, that was a solid rainstorm last night. John over in Cincinnati. Hey, Drew. Right in B-Town. Yeah, I'm going to Drew mentions I have purposely stayed away from speaking of shenanigans that took place in Caitlin Clark's press conference. There was nothing for me to need to have to be said. I think that everything that needs saying was being said. I was a little surprised. I guess I will say that that manifested itself the way it did, but maybe not. But yeah, it's something. I'm glad I don't have to. I'm glad it ain't me, but it wouldn't be. Robert asking if anyone watched the spring game. He's interested to see how those players match up in conference play. Well, we'll be talking about that. You'll be hearing exactly about that and what it went and how it went. And I'm telling you, for people that think this is going to be the same old for Indiana football, in the immortal words of former Indiana coach Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. Kurt Cignetti is, I'm not saying he's going to be able to wave a magic wand and turn Indiana into Big Ten champions. Don't get me wrong here. But I absolutely believe that this will be a team that will be in games that they weren't in before, that they will win games that they were not generally winning before. I'm not talking about a one-year blip. I mean, they're building from the ground up. Toughness, finishing, athleticism, speed. It's going to be a process. Let's see. We wonder if let's hear what the coach had to say.
To the end of spring, I give the players a lot of credit. I thought they really tried hard. And when you look back December 1st, the first day I took the job, when we had 10 offensive starters in the portal and many defensive guys, and, really couldn't even put the team at that point. And where we are today, we made good progress. But we have a long way to go and a short time to get there. And I think the players understand that in terms of my mindset, how we think, playing more physical, cleaner, tackling better, first time out, throwing and catching, stuff like that. But we'll look different with 4 or 5 key injured guys back in the fall, and with a great summer, and second time through the offense, defense, special teams, and hopefully a few roster additions in some areas we could use some help. So with that, I'll take some questions.
Funny thing is, there some roster additions. There are guys on the roster right now, and I'm not saying that there's a lot, and I'm not saying anybody specifically, but there are guys that are on the roster right now that might not be on that roster this fall. The transfer portal is open right now. There's things that Indiana needs, like defensive line, as far as upgrading to be as good as they can in all positions. Offensively, they just got to just keep getting better. They look to be in really good shape at quarterback. Taven Jackson had the better night, if you want to be truthful, but I'm not saying that makes him better. I'm not saying that puts him ahead of Curtis Rourke. It was just David Jackson looked good. He was 10 of 11 at one point. He led 2 drives over an 80-yard drive, a 90-yard drive. Addison Kobe looked good. We'll talk more about it specifically later in the show with Coach Shannon. But it's I'm looking forward to covering Indiana this year. And our friend Mitchell Page, he popped off that, hey, anybody going to the UCLA game, think about turning it into a golf trip with a mix of football. And I'm like, oh, I'm in. But I'm looking forward to that UCLA game. Long ways off. Seasons, months away. Third game in. Road game. Across the country. But I'm wondering if Indiana can get it together, could they make an unbelievable statement early? I don't know. UCLA with a new coach after Chip Kelly left to become the OC at Ohio State. So you have a new coach out there. And I acknowledge that Indiana has a new coach, but the one thing is, Indiana's situation, they upgraded, period. They've upgraded across the board. You look at Purdue. Ryan Walters was new last year, and it was a rough first year. But that's not meant to be a negative. It's just, it's hard when you change. It's hard when you've got to have all these new faces. It's hard when it's a whole new coaching regime. But there are going to be teams like Nebraska who are a step ahead of Indiana now, a year ahead with their coaching change. So it's going to be very, very interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Indiana's set up with an 8-game home schedule. So it ought to be good. Dave from Dagonia on with us. Dagonia Dave. There you go. Philip says Oregon is changing their basketball court. Oh, my God. I didn't see that, but thank heavens. I hope someone spilled an entire vat of brown paint over it. Solid brown, white, whatever. Anything but that hideous hunk of crap they've been playing on for years. That is the ugliest playing surface I've ever seen. We've got lots more coming up, including the man, Bob Kravitz. You know where he's from? BobKravitz.com. We'll be back with more Ed Bob right after this. Why aren't you coming into the stage? Add to the stage. Huh. Bob, can you go out and come back in?
You mean start the whole process over?
Yeah, I'm not being able to add you to the. Oh, wait, hold on. Maybe it's this. Da-da, da-da. I'm not as dumb as I look.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Easy. I know. I was hoping to slip that one by.
How are you, man?
I'm
Hey,
good.
I got a question for you. If you have any more of those Psalms cards, please feel free to send one my way. If you have access to those.
I'm taking care of that right now.
Thank you, man. It's golf season, so.
What 15. All right. We've got a minute and a half. Sorry, it's me, baby. I'm running solos today. Solo, you can't hear me.
I'm gonna run and get a Diet Coke real quick. We got a minute?
Oh yeah, you do that.
All right.
Oh crap. Bob, I just wanted to say one thing to you.
Yes, I know. I'm thinking about writing it. I don't know whether to write it or not.
I've left it alone. Someone commented a minute ago, and I said I acknowledge that. I didn't detail
If you want to ask me about it, I'll talk about it.
Were you there?
Yeah, I was there.
All right, here we go. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday, Freaky Friday. Bob Kravitz from bobkravitz.com joins us now. And Bob, there's a ton going on, mainly with the men's basketball and the portal or free agency, whatever you would like to call it. I think we should start calling it free agency.
That's what it is.
When especially now that you see players are requesting X amount of dollars. There are teams or regimes, and you don't have to go far, Indiana for one, that everything's on the line, which that was already the case for Mike Woodson. I mean, it's a make or break year, in my opinion. You either succeed this year or you don't. But the increase in obvious NIL money that was able to be garnered and used and will be used yet as there are 4 more spots to be filled for Indiana with Kane and Carlisle's expected to take one of those, but we'll see when that happens. But that really, I think that really makes it a make or break. You either succeed or you don't, because people are going to stop caring and giving money, more importantly.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. We both grew up in an age when people were cheating their brains out, but we didn't want to acknowledge it. Certain schools were giving, $1,000 handshakes, and now it's above board. And frankly, it's better this way. You may disagree, and if you do, feel free, but at least it's above board. The kids, many of whom come from poverty, are making a good buck on their name, image, and likeness. It is an auction. There's no question. Matt Painter had that right. It is an auction. But, it's not like the old days where you went to Old State U because you loved the coach, or you loved the campus, or you love the pretty girls who walk around the school. No, now it's all about the buck. But you know what? It's been about the buck for a while now.
Absolutely. And in one way or another, whether it was the facilities arms race in football, that was the rage for a couple of years, the locker rooms and this and that.
Yes.
And so now it's turned over to something else. And like I said, I'm fine with them making money. I think they should. Mike DeCourcy earlier in the week really lamented the fact of how, he asked a great question. Which was a more competent regime, Mark Emmert or the folks at the Pac-12? Not as comparison as money wise, but in the results of what happened, because the NCAA is, again, all they is a championship promoting business now. They have lost every single battle that they have fought in court. And not only that, it's all over the place, because you have states that are problematically sticking their nose into it in different ways. So now you've got in Virginia, this just happened yesterday, I believe, the governor signed NIL law that allows their school to speak directly to the athletes, where that previously. But right now, effectively July 1st, Virginia can talk directly, they can directly pay student athletes for NIL. No more needing a collective to do it, which I think is, I don't understand why it had to be the other way to begin with, why they thought sticking a middleman in there when it's a hand-picked middle person anyway. So what the hell?
Yeah, I mean, they just can't wrap their heads around the idea of the school directly paying the kids. It's been that way since Mr. Byers, ran, was it Walter Byers ran the NCAA like a fiefdom. But it's uncomfortable. And at the same time, oh, my battery's getting low. Oh, great. Okay. It's uncomfortable. It's not what we grew up with, but we just need to wrap our arms around it, and understand that this is the way it's going to be for a long time. I'm going to plug in my computer here real quick.
Well, yeah, you do that while I'm doing it. Jim P. Great initials. My name's James Patrick, but shouting us out from New Hampshire. That I don't remember that. I know we have people that listen in New Hampshire, but I don't remember seeing it. So welcome aboard. And Michael checking in from Greenback, Tennessee. But please continue.
No, that was my point. It's taking a while for me to embrace the current state of college sports. I mean, what's Ballo getting? About $1 million?
I think it's just a little under that, probably around 800.
Okay. Well,
which I think would be the highest that an Indiana player has gotten to this point.
Right.
Is my guess.
The thing that bothers me is that this kid was at Gonzaga, then he was at Arizona, now he's at IU. These guys, and I understand that they're playing for the bag. It's not like playing for Old State U. It's not like being it's not like, you're not doing it for your school. You're doing it for your bank account. And again, I understand that that's the way it is, and that's the way it's got to be. And these kids deserve some compensation, but it just feels like pro sports at this point.
Yeah, and that's in essence what it is. And in football, That's fine because the guys are going to be in school for 3 years at a minimum, not necessarily at your school for 3 years, as we saw with the I don't even care if I know his name, the kid from Arizona State that is now leaving, that was once committed to Florida, but left after they didn't come through with the payment, and now he is probably a top target of Georgia. So it's harder. I used to know when I was growing up, I knew the Cincinnati Reds lineup inside out, backwards, forwards. And I don't want to sound like I'll get off my lawn, but how it's getting more difficult when you grow your fan base and with that younger fans, it's kind of hard to grow a fan base when you don't know the players from year to year.
Well, this was the argument when free agency began in professional sports. This was the complaint that fans are loyal to their teams, but the players are not. They have nothing tethering them to their teams. And look, I'm certainly in favor of as much freedom and as much cash as these guys can get. But yeah, I mean, when you've got a guy like Ballo who's at Gonzaga, I mean, was it Store? The kid's Store. He was at 4 high schools in 4 years, and four colleges in 4 years. That's a little bothersome to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And now he is at Kansas, of course, the school with the biggest bag of all. And they are reloading with no problem. And so they're going to, but it's just, and I see a lot of.
It's a Wild West.
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't know what kind of guardrails you can put on. I mean, I think this is just going to continue to grow this way.
Yeah, and I don't know. The federal government is going to have to step in because otherwise it's like leaving one state's road and going from asphalt to gravel, leaving another one and being on dirt. You cannot have different sets of rules across different state lines.
You need uniformity without question.
And if they don't get that set up, it's like right now, I don't know that, and this is not going to last, but Virginia has something that nobody else has.
Right.
And they can do that, which again, I wish that states wouldn't do this, but I'd like to understand the reasoning behind a governor who I doubt knows a whole lot about college athletics and the money that goes behind it, and what he's doing. Maybe he just wanted to make a name for himself. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
But we'll see. Indiana had a spring football game last night, Bob.
Oh, I missed it. Damn.
Yep.
Missed it. Was it any different from? Well, he had fans there. That was good, I guess.
Fans there, and I've said this a couple times now. People that think it's going to be the same old Indiana, no, not so fast. You can see a difference in the product. You can see that there are differences, speed, depth at quarterback. They're going to be competitive.
Is this Rourke kid the real deal?
Oh, yeah, but David Jackson looked phenomenal last night.
That's what I heard. I read the stories this morning. He looked great.
Yeah, and looked very poised, which, getting to play half the season last year will do him well, but it does Indiana well. Having those guys battling back and forth and having him battle against the defense, that is what makes teams better. Indiana has not had depth to have that kind of fight going on, but it'll be interesting. I think that they're bowl bound partly because of their schedule. They've got 8 home games. It's set up for them to be, but it does look like this is going to be different. Indiana basketball, they're getting guys via the portal. but yet they really haven't solved their shooting woes
No,
yet.
they haven't. They haven't.
And that is something that I'm not saying that it's not at the forefront, but and again, those guys are wanted by other people. So it's not like that they're, they threw a big wad of cash at Ballo and he said, yeah, I'm good with that. So they've got him locked in, but along with Malik Renew and knowing that they're going to sign another big, it really gets you into that feel that you kind of know what the offense is going to look like.
Right. It's going to look a lot like it's looked in the past. Would you agree with that? You're going to have a couple of bigs. It's going to be a little slow. It's going to be inside out. And look, I mean, Purdue played inside out for the last 4 years. And of course they had a 2-time National Player of the Year, but you can play that way, but you've got to have shooters.
You got to have an out.
Yeah. And they don't have it right now. And I'm not sure. I was looking at the 3-point shooting percentages of some of the new kids coming in, and none of them are great. Now, that said, you can get a lot better. I remember, Oladipo in the early years couldn't hit a 3, and he developed and became a very fine 3-point shooter. So, just because the numbers aren't great coming in doesn't mean they don't have a chance to be good in the future. But certainly you look at the numbers now and you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll find out. But there are guys that are going elsewhere. Joey Hart, who had ended up down at Kentucky, now playing for our old friend Michael Lewis.
Yeah, that's
Ball
great.
State.
That's great. I'm happy for Michael.
Yeah, he lands a good one. He also got Peyton Sparks back, the kid from Indiana, which that kid should have never left. But I understand because I'm sure he got a little taste of the NIL money.
Yep, absolutely. Got a taste of it. And again, a lot of these kids, some of these kids come from tough backgrounds. And, if they can do something to help their families, then God bless them. Use your talent to bring in some much needed cash.
Yeah, absolutely. But will Indiana end things by getting someone that they truly need? As well as they've done in the portal, and that they've got some good ones. The Rice kid from Washington State, he was rated as one of the top portal gets. Of course, Ballo rated as one of the top portal gets. Kanan Carlisle is really all I've seen is expectations that he will commit to Indiana. He's on a visit this weekend. It's a big weekend for Indiana with Little Five, and they've got several visits going on. So you could see several spots fill up at the beginning of next week.
He's done a nice job. Now the key is, look, when you're living in the portal, your roster construction is going to be a little bit clunky, because you're just trying to get the best guys out of the portal. Let's see what Woodson can do putting this group together. That's my big concern, the thing that I'm most curious about is whether Woodson can take all these disparate parts and put them together as a team.
Yeah, one of the most interesting pieces is Elijah Malone, 6'10" center from Grace College. He was the NAIA Player of the Year, and he's got one season of eligibility left, but he's scored nearly 2,000 points, hauled in 1,000 rebounds. He was on campus yesterday and probably leaving today. And I think that I saw that Damari Williams, who was supposed to be here, has a top 3, and Indiana was not in it, but I'm not positive of that. But Kanan Carlisle in for a visit this weekend. He's expected to sign, but yet again, though, 3-point shooting.
Just average. I mean, they don't need great. They just need somebody who can shoot 38%. They don't need Steph Curry, although that would be nice.
And I have to say that Mackenzie Mbako is someone that they're going to count on to take that step up, because at the end of last season, his game really started to come around.
Yeah. I think Mbako is going to be an all Big Ten guy. I really do. I think, certainly freshman of the year, co-freshman of the year. His game at the beginning of the year, I thought this guy was a complete loss. I just didn't think he knew how to play basketball. He had a ton of talent, but he couldn't play, or he wouldn't play. But he figured it out. And I give Mike Woodson credit for developing Trace. I give him credit for developing Kalel, and I give him credit for staying with Mackenzie and getting his game to a point where he needed to be.
Yeah, and speaking of Trace Jackson Davis, the Warriors knocked out of the play-in game, so he was in the stands last night for the Indiana football game.
Oh, was he? Watch his brother.
So so pretty cool that he came back to appear there. He was there with Race Thompson.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're always together.
They are buddy ball.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I need to be interrupted quite often. What is your latest piece out on?
Well, I wrote about Caitlin Clark. And,
I was wondering if I thought you might. I haven't gotten to see that yet.
Yeah, I wrote about Caitlin Clark the day she was drafted. I was going to write about the day of her introductory press conference, which was interesting. But I had to do a story for Indianapolis Monthly that took up all my time. I'm going to go out to the Colts today. Chris Ballard is doing his usual pre-draft press conference. So I'm probably going to write something off of that. And I got a few other things in the wheelhouse. Of course, the Pacers open up their playoff series with the Milwaukee Bucks on Sunday. So I will watch that and probably write about that. And things are moving here. With Caitlin, everything changes. All of a sudden, I've got something to do during the summer.
Absolutely. And speaking of, that was it certainly garnered a lot of attention for the city of Indianapolis on a big day, and not necessarily in a positive way. But she had to deal with a couple of things. She had to block Antonio Brown.
I saw that. I don't even know what that was about, but I don't know. That Antonio Brown is such a clown. Why even bother?
The fact that he has a license to be able to communicate with other humans is amazing to me.
Yeah.
But that's a society that he kept getting passes, no pun intended, because he could catch the ball. But the situation that was up in Indianapolis the other day, that was odd. That was just weird. There's no other way to say it. I mean,
I don't mind, and I don't mind talking about it. I'm probably going to write about it at some point. I've been trying to avoid writing about colleagues and their issues. It was cringy. It was inappropriate. It was bad. Now, did it rise to the level of harassment the way some people seem to suggest? No. Anybody who knows Greg, and I don't know Greg well, we've never really established a close relationship in the time that we've both been here. But he's an awkward dude. He asks strange questions of men, women, everybody. Now, what was there a subtext to what he said? Maybe. I don't know his heart. I think he was just trying to be clever, and it blew up in his face and turned into something that he didn't want. He's getting a lot of smoke right now, but I'm not going to defend him. I thought it was indefensible from a journalistic standpoint because I thought it was cheap. and self-aggrandizing. At the same time, I don't think it rises to the level of anything terribly serious, or anything that is even suggestive of harassment. Because, like I say, he asked Shane Steichen bizarre questions. That's just kind of the way he rolls. And hey, I will say this about Greg: he is a fabulous columnist. He's incredibly prolific. I have great admiration for his work, but he stepped in it the other day.
Yeah, and I've kind of, like I said, I've stayed away from it. The follow-up question didn't help the cause. The question to the coach with how it was phrased, and you've got that. What are you going to do with it?
No. What he said was, I was there. He said to Christy Sides, basically, it was done in a joking manner. He said, well, how do you plan to use or to handle that? Like, you got a superstar on your team now. How are you going to handle it? And so I didn't have a problem with that, just because of the emphasis that he put on that. I don't think he meant it in any way.
No, I think it was just the fact that it followed up the other is what made it.
What was problematic was this. That's just.
Well, actually, no. The problematic part, as long as you keep doing it, as long as you do it to me, that was the more problematic part.
Yeah, and it was just strange. But Greg, for all his talents, is an odd duck. I based on what I've seen over the however many years he has been here at the Star, but. She's a grown up. She can handle it. I mean, she didn't seem
paid.
Yeah. I mean, look, it to me, it wasn't as bad as everybody's making it out to be. Everybody wants their pound of flesh, and he should have his credentials revoked. Yeah, right. We all ask stupid questions. I can remember it wasn't a stupid question, but I can remember a time at the Denver Broncos. I was in town covering something Peyton related because it was like the first game that Peyton was playing for the Broncos after his tenure with the Colts. And the PR guy says, we've got, I thought he said Demarius is coming up next. Well, it was DeMarcus. Okay. DeMarcus Ware. And I'm asking DeMarcus Ware about how the Colts guarded him, how they defended him in the first game, which cornerbacks, I'm asking all these questions thinking I'm talking to a wide receiver. And finally somebody said, you got the wrong guy. So we all do stupid things.
Oh, trust me. I'm at the head of the line in stupidity.
I'm not comparing my situation to his. I wouldn't have gone in that direction that Greg did, but I tend to defend people in my business. It was cringy and it was inappropriate and it was silly, but I don't know. Look, I'm not a woman. I've never been exposed to that kind of harassment or what is perceived as harassment. So probably better to ask a woman's advice or view of this. But
here's a question I do want to ask.
Yeah.
And this is, I said when it comes to stupidity, I'm a lot of times at the front of the line. But so when there's complaints of being sexualized or whatever, and I usually don't get into any political type of stuff, but yet it's not like seeing male members. They're not out there playing with makeup on and all of that. So it's just a different scenario. And I'm not saying that gives any permissibility, because it doesn't. Nothing does. But it's
I'll let you talk yourself out of this one.
No, I'm just saying it's a different situation that has to be handled differently.
Look,
You have to.
I think you treat female athletes exactly the way you treat male athletes. Just ask your damn question. It doesn't need to be cute. Just, I mean, 99% of that press conference was phenomenal. She is super sharp. She's funny. You saw the Saturday Night Live thing she did. She did a really good job on No Sleep. She's I was gonna say a big girl. She's a grown woman.
She's a great marketer. She's a marketer's dream.
Yeah, look, I think people in our business are a lot more upset about it than Caitlin and her family were. It was just very, very uncomfortable, very cringy. But again, I don't think it rose to the level of harassment. But smarter people than me can disagree, and certainly women. My wife was very upset by the approach that Greg took. And last I checked, she's still a woman. So I have total respect for however a woman might perceive that approach that Greg took.
Absolutely. What's up next for you?
Well, like I said, I got Colts today, pre-draft. We got the Pacers coming up in the playoffs. A lot more Caitlin stuff, and just gonna go my merry way. Maybe a little golf here and there.
Well, check your email. Hopefully,
Okay, good.
Santa came by, but we can't thank you enough as always. And make sure everybody goes to bobkravitz.com to keep up on what is going on. We've got Indy the month of May coming up soon.
Oh yeah, that's right. Got to get my credentials.
No Bob Baffert at the Derby this year either. He his deal was set to expire, and they gave him another year.
Yeah, as he deserves.
Yeah, so no more Bob Baffert in the Derby. Cannot thank you enough as always, my friend.
All right, buddy. Take care. Thank you.
You betcha. Bob Kravitz joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday. Glad to have him. And let's see what Laura. And no, she does not wear makeup or much about it. And I love that about her. So you can tell that she's all about the game, all about winning and everything else. So looking forward to it. We've got lots more coming up. We're going to hear from some of the participants, more from Kurt Signetti, hear from Curtis Rourke, and also Mr. Fisher, the linebacker, in addition to Zach Osterman joining us from the Indy Star as well. Lots more coming up, brought to you by Chop Shop, where you can find the men's and women's basketball coaches along with the football show. Chop Shop Market Table, home of the Coaches Shows, is your local meat shop, steakhouse, and caterer, no matter where you live, offering great sit-down dining experience for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. You can even pick your own steak from the on-site butcher and choose how they make it up. Back with more right after this. Forrest, he's out. He's on it. Let's see. You don't have to listen to any commercials today. How about that? Baylor now the front runner for Jeremy Roach. It's going to be interesting to see what Calipari can get done with all the chicken man money, because they haven't landed a big one yet. Other than he's got the one kid that followed him there. And then how about the fact that the new associate head coach at Arkansas is none other than Kenny Payne. Too bad John Boy's not here today. All right.
Curtis Rourke. We'll start with Zach on your left and then go to Mike.
I recognize it's a spring game. It's broken up, rotating kind of at every position. But just what was your feel in terms of maybe offensive rhythm, run pass balance, connection with receivers, the communication you were able to get free snaps? Just where was that maybe compared to the beginning of spring? I recognize it's a spring game.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. I hope you're doing well, ready for the weekend. It's a soaker, man. Luckily, the rain held off last night in Bloomington until the football game spring game was over. And actually, I thought I was going to make it home, but came a gully washer. And that's okay, though. It's what you need. The golf courses certainly do not need watering today, but for those of you out there that have been cutting grass, you've been back at it, and you'll be right back at it. Last night, Indiana, as I said, had their spring game, and perceived QB1, Curtis Rourke, went with the first team, and then afterwards met with the media. Here's our friend Zach Osterman, who's coming up in the next segment, asking a question.
It's broken up, rotating kind of at every position, but just what was your feel in terms of maybe offensive rhythm, run pass balance, connection with receivers, the communication you were able to get free snap? Just where was that maybe compared to the beginning of spring?
Yeah, I think we definitely came a long way since the beginning of the spring. Day one, everyone's trying to feel out the offense, feel out the playbook, kind of just get used to everybody. And every practice we've built on that, and we've built chemistry with each other, and we've really been able to, get things going and kind of come together as an offense in the team. And so I think today was a really good showcase of what we can do. And I think it's the bottom right now, and we're going to continue to keep growing and improvement as all the way up to fall.
That was Curtis Rourke, one of Indiana's quarterbacks. He is listed as with the first team last night, but I'm telling you, Taven Jackson looked fantastic. The offense looked really good, and we'll hear from Coach Shannon Griffith later on. Of course, he joins us here at Indiana Sports Beat every Thursday, but really impressed with the running backs room, the speed on offense. You're not going to have a 170-pound guy trying to run the ball up the middle, and we'll have to see how well they can protect you. Someone mentioned earlier, it's hard to tell a lot from a spring game where you're playing against yourself, especially a team that is not an Ohio State. It's not 3-4 deep, and I agree with that. But we will see how it turns out. I think, like I said, I think they're going to surprise some people. 7 wins is easily attainable, I believe. There are enough teams. You're going to face some tough ones, some tough games. Going to UCLA, Washington, I don't know. They had coaching change and they lost a lot. They lost the bulk of what they had. So that'll be interesting. Of course, you still have Michigan and Ohio State on the schedule. Nebraska, that's going to be a tough one for Indiana. It's, even though it's at home, Rule's got them going. We've got to take another break. When we come back, Zach Osterman will be joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Back with more right after this. Oh, man, it feels so lonely. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, other than, no, it's not Jerry Jones. It's Philip. It's Tyson, the Chicken Man. Chicken Man. The Chicken Man. Let's see. Well, Amari Williams, I thought that he had cut Indiana out. So that's your backup center, or not necessarily a backup. That I would say that Elijah Malone, that kind of probably pushes him a little forward. I'll make sure I don't lose my time. Oh, we got another minute. And I'm just because he's from an NAIA school, that doesn't that's not a guy I write off. There's no pressure on him. What free hot dogs, man? Did I miss out on some free hot dogs? Is that what they were giving out last night? All right, where are we? All right, we're ready to come back. Hey, Zach, how are you?
Hey, how we doing?
Good, sir. How are you?
Good.
You ready? I'm producerless today.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday, wrapping up the week and heading towards a weekend that's going to be a little cooler than most, but it is Little 5 in Indiana, in Bloomington rather, and a lot of visits on the basketball side. You've got the post reaction from the spring game last night, so there was a ton of people out. I can tell you, Zach, when I was driving home. Once I got out of Bloomington, I started chuckling because it really came a frog strangler, man. And all I could think about was that line that I saw around Kilroy Sports, thinking, where the hell did all those people go running to? Because there were so many people in town for the Little 5.
Like that every year, man. There's nothing like it.
No, certainly isn't. And Zach used to be a participant. Now he coaches one of the teams. What's the team again, Zach?
Phi Kappa Psi is the team that I help coach.
Now that it's rained like it did, I don't know that it affects the track, but I'm sure that it does because there's a lot of moisture in there. I know that there needs to be some, but there's a lot. But is that perfect? Is that really going to soak it up and allow the bikes to grab more?
Yeah, I mean, you tend to hold on, sorry. I realized just now that I have an email that I needed to reply to 4 days ago that I I have not replied to. You tend to want the track to be packed down. So asphalt is, or not asphalt, cinder is spent coal. It's what is left over when you burn coal, which is one of the reasons why they have trouble resurfacing the track, is it's a lot harder to get spent coal than it used to be. It can be very loose. It can get very dusty. What ideal conditions are effectively would be a good rain and then cool weather so that it dries while staying somewhat damp, if you understand, like a good rain, and then you don't want to get hot and all of it just come right back out. Let it seep in. Then you drag it and you roll it, and it gets good and packed down. And that's about when it's, the closest you're going to get to it being like riding on like asphalt or concrete, something that is a true, just sort of hard surface. So in theory, the weather we've had in the last 24 to 48 hours has probably created ideal sort of track conditions. It is worth saying, and this is no one's fault, the track it's been harder to maintain down the years because it has been harder to get fresh cinder. I think there are some laws about basically traveling coal remnants across state lines. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, for years they just went to the physical plant and got cinder, but nobody burns coal anymore. And then when they built the new soccer facility in 2019 and 2020, the contractors working there left a big load of sand that had been dropped off for like the purpose of laying the foundation for the Tardy Center uncovered, and a bunch of it got blown onto the track and mixed in with the cinder, and that's not good for the cinder because it loosens everything up. Sand, anybody who's ever done any landscaping knows that sand allows water basically to pass through rather than settling. And so it's been harder. I know they've put some time and effort and money into it the last couple of years, and it's been better. I can take you back to a couple of races, sort of pre and post COVID, where it just looked like a dust bowl. But it's probably a little bit slower as a track than it used to be. And I don't think that's necessarily anyone's fault so much as it's just the evolution of whatever. And I know they've explored at times. I know this is way more information than anybody wanted, but they've explored at times like trying to find some sort of artificial surface, some sort of like basically artificial, cinder sort of substitute. And I think I don't know if it's been cost, or it's been maybe not quite the consistency they needed or whatever. But anyway, this is all kind of inside baseball. Nobody cares about it but me. Ideally, the weather we've had, these last couple days, warm, dry it, rain, pack it down, cool, keep it from just drying right back out and turning dusty. Fingers crossed, it's good for the race this weekend.
Well, looking forward to it. Hope it is a great one. I know it's not going to be warm, but at least it will be dry. So that's the most important thing. Last night, before we get into some hoops, we saw the first iteration of the Kurt Signetti era with the spring game. And of course, it was just as Signetti put it, a glorified practice, but it was very good to see the pieces out there. And I said earlier that it was obvious there is a difference in the product on the field. You could see speed on both sides of the ball, but especially offensively, the running back room looks really good. The offensive line looks upgraded. The quarterbacks look like they are competitive. David Jackson looked really good. And it was just, there's a lot of positives. Not that it was perfect, and I've told people don't get excited thinking I'm saying Indiana's going to run out and win a Big Ten title, but this is not the same old Indiana, and that they're going to be competing in games that they weren't competing in, and quite possibly winning games that they weren't finishing and winning.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, listen, it's, spring games are what they are. Even there was a moment where we were asking Curt Cignetti about some of the second team offense plays last night. And, he said that was trying to figure out if the second team offense was so good. The first, the second defense was was not. And he even kind of said, I think I know the answer to that question. It was,
and I think that we both know the answer to it too.
It was reminiscent of that scene in We Are Marshall where he says, something like the offensive line is really struggling to block, and I don't think it's because the defensive line is just that good. But I agree with, particularly offensively. Number one, I thought you could see why Cignetti has, maybe with some reservation, been cautiously optimistic about offensive line play through the preseason. That unit just looked steady, wasn't fully healthy, a couple pieces, missing, a couple guys just out with surgeries and things, be fine for the season. But, you saw veteran presence. I thought you saw, some good things from the first string line and the second string line. Excuse me. And then that leads you to, a good offensive line play allows you to showcase an offensive backfield that suddenly looks a little bit better. And we saw some moments when guys really popped, and some explosive runs. But I thought, and Cignetti mentioned this post-game or post-spring game, however you put it, there were a number of times where I just saw Indiana's backs moving forward. And it's, just like whereas last year when Indiana run the ball on first down, it would get a yard or two. Now it was getting 3 or 4. And that may not sound like a big gap, but, 2 yards on first down and 2 yards on second down sets up 3rd and 6. 4 yards on first down and 3 yards on second down sets up 3rd and 3. It's literally half the challenge. So, just a lot of kind of the offense being able to stay on schedule, the offense being able to move the ball, some stops. The defense had some moments. I also thought there were a couple moments, frankly, when Cignetti might have kind of put his thumb on the scale because he wanted, certain scenarios in terms, like there was one time where he went to the official and I think pretty clearly told him to call grounding on Curtis Rourke when it wasn't grounding. Because he wanted to set up some scenarios, to get a look at certain things. Some really good moments from receivers. Anderson Kobe had, probably the catch of the night. Donovan McCulley had a touchdown catch. I thought you saw Elijah Sarrett, 2 or 3 moments that kind of pop off the page, what made him so good at JMU and make him such an intriguing player for Indiana. And then also just depth. We're sitting here and talking about those 3 guys, and yet Miles Cross had a couple nice moments. Miles Price had a couple nice moments. Omar Cooper had a couple nice moments. Saw more tight end and less 4 wide than I expected, but you also never know what coaches are maybe comfortable or not comfortable putting on tape when they're having these, publicized spring games. This was on the Big Ten Network. Anybody can get a hold of it. So, encouraging moments. You never want to make too much out of anything when it comes to spring football, but, if you're Indiana, I don't think you're coming out of last night. I don't think you're coming out of last night overly concerned, I guess, if that makes sense. You're coming out of last night probably more optimistic than concerned, while still knowing that there's some stuff you're going to have to deal with, some stuff you're going to have to address.
Yeah, and the wrap up last night, one of the things I said was there are guys on the roster right now that probably won't be on the roster in the fall. Not that they're getting booted or whatever, but the portal's still open. And there are guys that are not on the roster right now that will be when fall comes around. The kid from the Arizona State, the quarterback, hit the portal yesterday, originally committed to Florida, and his NIL deal went south, but it is what it is. And I hate saying this sucks or that sucks now, but because it just is what it is. But it really, you hate to see guys that are playing with a team in the spring and then turning around and leaving them before you get going. It's just it's still an odd situation, and I don't think it ever will not be an odd situation.
Well, and obviously this portal cycle is different because they haven't closed they haven't closed, and they may not close, but they haven't closed this loophole around. I don't say loophole; it's the rule. They have not found a way to address this sort of rule around multi-time transfers and the idea that you can move basically whenever you want, as long as you're in good academic standing. So you have to move between semesters. You have to be able to make a good faith case that your grades are in order and all that, but you aren't limited by how many times you can transfer within the confines of where you are in your academic career, in terms of that you get one transfer before you graduated and then the grad transfer option once you graduated. Now you can transfer whenever. So it's going to be even more sort of active that way. And that is a little weird, but the flip side is it's another way that all of this just kind of comes to further resemble, the idea of free agency in professional sports. Think of the layers of, I think about baseball, for example, where, the winter is when everything's supposed to happen, right? Like the winter meetings and, everything kind of from like Thanksgiving through, maybe mid-February, and then spring training hits. But then there's like a second round of free agency, essentially, once you get really deep into it, once you start getting to spring training. The guys that need to find a home and haven't yet, they start to scramble a little bit, and there's another round of, and then there are roster cut downs at the end of spring training, and teams go searching to see if they can find veterans that they didn't expect to be on the free agent market. Then it is something that we actually have a sort of analogs to in professional sports. It's just, again, college sports looking a little bit more like professional sports.
Absolutely. And this is a big weekend. In addition to it being Little Five, Indiana has had already a couple of guys in for visits, and Connor Esigian, Elijah Malone, the NAIA transfer, and Kanan Carlisle this weekend begins his visit today, although they lost Amari Williams as that visit was canceled. And it's been widely thought that Carlisle was, I hate to call him a lock for Indiana, but that's been the perception. But even with what they have added, which has been a lot, and they added some big pieces, no pun intended. Have they yet to address the true shooting woes that they have been experiencing?
Probably not yet. No. Carlisle is a player that I think you can make a pretty reasonable case will shoot better if he's, you look at what Stanford asked him to do last year. Like, Indiana would not put that much on his shoulders in terms of, usage rate, in terms of, not just shot volume, but like the extent to which he was being asked to create for others. I mean, he was, at times that team's de facto point guard, not that others weren't, kind of contributing as well, but he shot 32% from three last season. I wouldn't be stunned if you put him on a team with Trey Galloway and Miles Rice and Gabe Cupps and said, hey, you're going to just spot up a little bit more. You get to be off the ball a little bit more. I wouldn't be stunned if 32% goes to 35 or 36. You know what I mean? On a similar level of volume, because you're reducing what you're physically and I guess mentally asking of him possession by possession, and that allows him to focus a little bit more on certain areas of the game. Obviously, you mentioned Connor Esigian. I think if you're Indiana or anybody, frankly, recruiting Esigian, you probably are banking on the idea that last season was largely about the back injury and just not really being able to kind of find his way back into the rotation. Once he kind of fell out and couldn't quite get healthy, and you had AJ Storr and Max Klesmit and Chucky Hepburn, and there just suddenly wasn't, it was a little bit more crowded back there. But Esigian's a three-point shooter. He was in high school. He was his freshman year at Wisconsin. I don't think there's any reason to believe that he can't be that player again, whether that's as a starter or as a key reserve. I think if he's the sort of player that if he were coming off the bench for Indiana, we'd still be seeing him probably 18, 20 minutes a night. Like, I think he'd be a pretty regular player within that rotation. If they don't get him, if they don't get Carlisle, I've heard the same thing, that Carlisle may be leaning toward Indiana. We'll see what this weekend brings. I really haven't heard anybody else anybody else's name mentioned with Carlisle, but it's worth saying, like, sometimes that stuff can just be echo chambery, that you're all about kind of focusing on one school and their recruiting efforts and who's on their big board and who are they trying to get in for visits and stuff. And you kind of get tunnel vision and you don't hear as much about it. But, if Carlisle does wind up committing after this visit or during this visit or whatever, that's a really big piece for Indiana next season. If you could add Connor Essegian to that, then I think what you'd see potentially is Indiana, and not necessarily say they're done, but more kind of the idea of if Indiana were able to get both of those guys in, then Indiana would be able to say, hey, we've got 2 spots left. We've addressed the biggest needs here. Now it's sort of like, hey, let's slow down. Let's take a breath. Let's reassess what we still need, what's out there. And, your thinking becomes more refined. And you also know that it's potentially going to be, you're going to have to be a little bit more targeted about the guys you're recruiting, because, guys who are looking for big minutes aren't going to be as interested in you if they're saying, well, you just took 3 guards that go straight into your rotation and a big that's going to start. So, if I'm coming to you, I'm coming for a bench role at best. It's funny. Like, I thought about this yesterday when I was having this conversation with somebody. Like, Anthony Walker would be the perfect transfer for this Indiana team right now. And, he was good for Indiana last year, but he'd be perfect for Indiana right now. Veteran player, didn't necessarily expect to start, could give you quality minutes. Yeah, could come in a little bit of a tweener, could give you a little bit more flexibility coming off the bench. Could the sort of player who could play 8 minutes one night and it not affect him when you needed him to play 22 minutes the next night, that kind of thing. So you're more looking for that player, but you can be a bit more patient, that there's not necessarily as much sort of urgency to go get that player, because that player is not necessarily at the top of a bunch of other schools' recruiting boards. The guys that are at the top of everybody else's wish list probably not going to consider Indiana if Indiana's already got, in this hypothetical, Rice, Carlisle, Essegian, Ballo, because they're going to say, well, in addition to Malik Renew, Bryson Tucker, Trey Galloway, Mackenzie Mbako, Gabe Cupps played a lot last year, and you got Shekai Newton and Anthony Leal. So where are my minutes in all this? So that's when maybe it becomes a little harder to find guys that fit exactly what you're looking for. But again, you can be more patient because you feel like you've addressed the biggest needs, and now you can be a little bit more selective. You can be a little bit more careful, essentially.
We saw that Joey. Oh, daggone it. I'm drawing a blank on his last name. It winds up at Ball State with Michael Lewis. So happy for him. Is Elijah Malone that guy? I mean, he's an NAIA guy, but his numbers look nice. He's an experienced guy. He's not going to come in, thinking that he's going to be starting. He's going to know kind of what his role is. That's Kansas and Duke are not beating down the door for him. That's probably, it sounds like a guy that would fit into that category that you just talked about.
Possibly. I mean, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. I haven't really talked to Malone about like sort of what his desires are, because if I'm not mistaken, he only has the 1 year left, I think. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I haven't talked to him, so I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. I think he'd be an intriguing option because he'd be different. And, in the past, we've seen Indiana load up so that basically when they played that 2 big basketball, they could kind of do it permanently, even when they went to their bench rotation. As things stand right now, it actually feels like Indiana's constructing something a little bit closer to what Purdue was last year, where you could start with those 2 bigs and you could play those bigs together. And I would probably argue that Malik Renew is a little bit more offensively versatile right now than Trey Kaufman-Renn is, or at least was, across the course of last season. But if you look at, for example, Ken Palm's last 5 games, 10 most used lineups tool, in terms of just like, the most used 1 through 5 combinations, the percentage of the time they were on the floor in the last 5 games for Purdue, Mason Gillis was at the 4 for 6 of those 10 lineups. Trey Kaufman-Renn was in 4 of them. So at the 4 for 4 of them, I think he was at the 5 for 1 of them. But, the point is, Purdue is an example of a team that played a fair amount of 2 big basketball and still made it work. Now, Purdue also had a number of other shooters. Indiana's got to be able to find that, whether that's developing guys like Mbako, like Cups, like Rice, like, potentially a Carlisle, obviously bringing in somebody like a Sejan. And then there's also got to be the willingness to be flexible and, to say when the situation calls for it, we're going to either, keep Umar Ballo at the 5, but Mackenzie Mbako goes to the 4, Bryson Tucker goes to the 3. Or maybe we play 3 guards with Tucker or Mbako as a small ball 4, and whether it's Malik Renew at the 5 or it's Umar Ballo at the 5, the point is Indiana's flexible and willing to go to maybe some smaller, more fluid, more sort of open offensive rotations. It's finding that balance, and I think Matt Painter did a really good job of that. I think partly because of player development, it took him about 2 years or maybe a year and a half to really nail down how to find it with that roster around Zach Edey. But if you're Indiana, I think you could do a lot worse than looking at some of the blueprints that kind of he used and saying, hey, how do we overlay this onto what we're looking for?
Absolutely. And so it is looking good. Indiana fans their hopes are getting up, but the offense is kind of leaning towards similar to last year, but if they can land these guards that they've already gotten, Mr. Rice, who is that's a great upgrade. They're going to give them a lot more athleticism. We don't know who else they're going to pick up. The minutes for Gabe Cups, he's obviously not going to be on the court as much as he was last year, probably because he was thrust into a situation. But it's going to be a different look for Indiana fans.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is. And rotations will settle themselves out. And I mean, you're right about the offense to an extent. I would point out, like, Indiana still had a top 30 offense 2 years ago playing with 2 bigs. And I recognize Trace Jackson Davis was, just like an unreal player in a lot of ways. Sorry, that's my wife. That was just kind of like an unreal player in a lot of ways for Indiana that season. But, the flip side is you've got a player now in Umar Ballo that, number one, has been a part of some even more efficient offenses, including offenses, it's worth saying, that played 2 big basketball. I mean, like, when he was playing next to Tubelis, they were essentially playing 2 big basketball. And you've also got a player in Ballo that, in theory, in some ways, frankly, is more efficient than Trace Jackson Davis was, certainly around the rim and certainly rebounding the basketball. And I know people fret about the free throw shooting, and I'm not saying they shouldn't, but when you kind of, when you do the weights and measures of like, well, he shoots this from the free throw line, but he also gets to the free throw line more often than almost anybody else in the country. And he's one of the best offensive rebounders in the country, which means that he's going to leave some points at the free throw line, but he's probably going to get you some extra possessions. And suddenly you can make a few more mistakes offensively. You can take a few more risks offensively, knowing that you're going to get, maybe 4 or 5 extra possessions that you weren't going to get because you've got him in the post. All this stuff is just kind of a balancing act. And I'm not sitting here and saying Indiana's going to be fine offensively. Everything's going to be amazing. They still got to find shooting. They're going to figure out how to make the ball screen offense work. They're going to have to adapt in all of these new players. I think there's a world where Indiana's got 2, even 3 new starters on offense next season, depending on different stuff that, nobody's really talked about, like Trey Galloway kind of talking about his knee at the end of last season and making it sound like it might need surgery. And, what's that going to look like? Is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be fine? Is there any recovery process? Whatever. The point is there's still a long way to go, but I think that, there's a depth to the way Indiana has developed what it's been able to bring in, the players it's been able to bring in so far, and the guys that it looks like it has a shot of bringing in, that I think is just kind of, is going to give IU more options than people realize, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And we're looking forward to seeing how it shakes out, how the weekend shakes out, and the other visits that have happened. But there is more to come. of course, as we know, with those spots that are open. And, of course, you've got a big weekend in front of you with the Little 500. Are you ready to get out there, man? You guys ready? What's your shot of winning?
We'll be in the mix. I mean, it's you always need some good fortune on race day. That's just the nature of the event. I don't think people appreciate that enough. That that a lot of the time when teams struggle or when teams have a bad day, at least some of it is frankly kind of out of their hands in terms of what gets them there, wrecks and mechanical issues and different things like that. But we're deep enough. We got more experience than we did last year, and so with a fair wind, I think we have a chance of being there at the end.
Looking forward to it, man. I hope it's a good one for you. Good luck.
Thanks so much, Jim. Talk to you soon.
betcha. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star joining us as we wrap up some portal talk. But we've got more coming up. We'll hear a wrap up of what happened last night's spring football game, and there's plenty more. We'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from the Autograph app. Autograph is where real fans get unreal rewards. The first app to track and reward fans for loving what they love most, turning passion into access and experiences. Download the Autograph app in either the Apple Play or Google Play store and make sure that you go to the link that I don't know that I can get up quick enough. I'll be honest with you. I think I can get down there. There we go. Link.ag.fan/ISB media. Make sure you use that and you get all of the best college basketball content right in one place. Read articles of your favorite teams and shows as well. So make sure you go to the Autograph app and use the ISB link. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this. Oh, mama. Oh, man. The second time you've done that. Whoo! It's a chilly Friday. It's a bloody merry morning, and she left me without warning sometime in the night. And I'm flying down to Houston and forgetting her the nature of my flight. Kentucky's Reed is gone to the NBA. How do you stay lit up? It's a bloody merry morning, and she left me without warning sometime in the night. And I'm flying down to Houston with forgetting her the nature of my flight. As we scramble down the runway. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle along with Shannon Griffith coming to you from Indiana's Memorial Stadium after tonight's spring game. The It's a bloody merry morning, and she left me without warning sometime in the night. The truth showed up. He's gonna be mad. He missed all the he missed all the basketball talk. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. I hope you're having a good day, ready for the weekend to get started. It's a little 5 weekend in Bloomington, of course. The big doings going on out at Armstrong Stadium, normally the home of men's soccer. But this weekend, the world's greatest college weekend takes over. Just finished up with Zach Osterman from the Indy Star, who used to be a competitor in that and is now and has been a coach for some time. Last night, Indiana spring game went off without a hitch. Coach Signetti was not too upset afterwards, and he didn't have a reason to be, really. The Hoosiers looked pretty good. The offense looked pretty good. And then, of course, Coach Shannon Griffith got together with me, and this is pretty much what we saw.
First iteration of Kurt Signetti's squad hits the ground running, and we've got to see a lot of things tonight. A lot of offense, a lot of defense. The offense was successful, but I don't know which quarterback had a better night, to be honest with you. Curtis Rourke had a fine night, but David Jackson, man, he 2 big drives, an 80-yard drive and a 90-yard drive. Addison Kobe looked good. The running backs looked good. Defense looked a lot faster. There were so many differences for this Indiana squad that we already see, and it's only been since last winter and up till spring. They've got all summer to go and all fall camp yet, so they've got a long way to go on where we're going to end up seeing them when that first game rolls around with Florida International. But I'm thinking that even though I know he's not, if he was in a room by himself, he may say that, yeah, I think things went okay tonight. But I'm talking about, of course, Kurt Signetti, who coaches are never happy, and one would know former coach here, Coach Shannon here. But it was a good look for Indiana tonight, I thought.
Yeah, I think you would say that they got what they wanted out of it, being that it was just two 15-minute halves, which is, they still got the reps they needed because of doing a no huddle. So they got probably 60, 70 good reps tonight. I thought Taven Jackson looked very good. Had a couple of those big drives, and I know Coach Signetti talked about they kind of exposed the freshman corner on a couple of them, which shows you some of their youth. Defensively, I think there's pieces there. I think they're missing a few that hopefully they can address through the portal. Like Coach Signetti said, I'm not just going to go out and look for somebody. I'm looking for the best. So I'm sure defense will be that focus. Offensive line, I thought they were solid. I did. I really thought they were solid. I thought they got good push at the point of their attack, their running game. I like the running back room. I think they've got 3 talented kids back there that can help make offensive linemen right. And that's when you've got a good running back room, is because, the offensive linemen can only do so much at the point of attack, create lanes, get a good push. The offensive backs have to make the linemen right. And I thought tonight that showed on some of the runs that those kids had. So the running game, I think, is in good, solid hands with what they've got. And it's, probably one of the quickest, fastest running back groups that I've seen around here in a long time, coupled with a wide receiver group that also showed a lot of promise tonight. And Donovan McCulley had a couple nice plays.
Well, you mentioned something very key, the offensive line, because that has been – Indiana football's had a lot of issues over the years, but here of late, the last few years, the offensive line has just been nothing could get going. And if you don't have a solid offensive line, you're not going to be able to run the ball. You're not going to be able to throw the ball. They were able to do both of those things tonight and do it very well. But this is early. So imagine what it's going to be like once they get through the summer, get through the fall, and really get together, because virtually all these guys are new on this roster. Yeah. So they're all getting together for the first time. And this was the first time to really come out in front of people, the first time they tackled all year. So there's a lot of positives, but man, for people who think this is the same old Indiana, I already answered a tweet earlier. I'm like, I don't think so. And they look faster on both sides of the ball, and just in every aspect. It's not perfect, like you said. You got a freshman corner who got exposed, but that should happen when you've got a senior quarterback back there, and then you have another experienced quarterback in Taven Jackson, and Tyler Cherry came out and he did okay. I don't remember what his stats were. We don't have the stats exactly right now in front of us, but I do know that Taven Jackson probably piled up some numbers.
Well, yeah, he had a couple drives there where he made some good decisions. I was a little surprised on maybe some of the blitzes that they were bringing. I didn't know if they would show that much defensively in terms of some of their pressures. And the quarterback's going to be responsible for a lot of that off the edge stuff. And I thought, Taven did a great job of recognizing it and hitting the routes to the receivers that were running hot routes that led to big plays. And that's what, you're always looking for offensively is when a defense brings the pressure, how do you handle it? Kind of a grace under fire scenario. And then do you make the correct play? Because that's when gets defenses back on their heels. Because if you can stop them doing what they like to do and hit them for some big plays here and there, then as an offense, you feel like you're in control of the game and you get things rolling. And I thought Taven did a nice job of that tonight, especially in those first two drives.
And not only are they solid at quarterback, they have depth at quarterback. We haven't even seen Alberto Mendoza, who's not even on campus yet.
Right.
So you've got a fourth guy who will be coming, who is a pretty daggone good player. So they're going to put it's not going to be the same old Indiana. I can promise you that. And as far as the blitzes, which we saw a lot of, I'm like, toward the end, there was another corner blitz. I'm like, damn, here comes another one. But Kurt Cignetti you can kind of tell he's not going to give everything away, but he's also like, hey, here's what we're going to do. Stop us. And well, maybe you think you know what we're going to do, but we're going to mix it up.
Right. Yeah. Not to say that he played all his hands tonight, but I thought you saw pretty much what I think we all expected to see based upon some of the conversations that we've all had. I think you saw an offense that was multidimensional in what they did, especially with the tight ends. They attached them, they unattached them, they spread them out, did some things like that. They did some 4 receiver sets as well. And then you saw from a defensive perspective, you saw some of the zone pressures and things of that magnitude that they also did. And, like you said, I think, that's their base. I think what we saw tonight was their base. Now, what happens beyond that is to anybody's guess, because that's when some of the exotic stuff comes into play and game plan and stuff. But look, I think if you look at it from the perspective, did you get what you wanted out of it? Yes. I think we saw some improvement in the areas that they need to improve in. And I think we saw some areas that they're a little bit short in, and they're going to have to go into the portal here and maybe find some D linemen. I think they're a little shallow there. And in the secondary, I think there's a little question mark there. Linebacker, I think they feel pretty good with what they got. Aiden Fisher, I mean, I'm always impressed with that young man when he speaks at the mic, just the way he handles himself. And of course, we got a chance to listen to Curtis tonight for the first time throughout the entire spring. And you can see, big, strong kid. And I like the way he handled himself in front of the media there tonight as well. But hey, they're going to make a big jump, like you said, from now until fall camp. That will be their biggest leap as a team, both in the weight room as well as comprehension of what they're doing.
Football IQ is something that we saw in both of the guys that spoke tonight, Curtis Rourke and Aiden as well. Like you said, you can hear the football mentality. You can hear it carry over from Kurt Cignetti on the change that is Indiana football. And I'm not telling everybody they should get all jacked up and think Indiana's going to win the Big Ten or anything like that. But I am saying this is not the same old Indiana. And I've said it on the show already. I think this team goes to a bowl game minimum, partly because of their schedule is set up so well for with 8 home games and a lot of other things going as well. But I don't know that a lot of people are going to expect this much change from Indiana.
No, and I think, when there's a change in a staff, you've always got a new approach to things. So everything is new. It looks different. It feels different. That's a natural feeling to occur. Ultimately, it's going to be what's displayed on a Saturday afternoon or evening that ultimately makes that final decision. But you can see that the steps that they've made in terms of the short turnaround from the Coach Signetti's hiring, how quickly he went through recruiting, to a minimum number of days actually spring practice. I mean, he really didn't take all the days that he needed or could for spring practice this year. So I think you got to feel pretty positive about what is in place. And like I said, if they can find a few more pieces here and there, I think you can see that opportunity for them to have a good season. Now, ultimately, they got to work for it. And if nothing's going to be given to them, they're not going to sneak up on anybody. You're going to have to come play every week in the Big Ten. Or should I say the Big 14 or 15 or whatever it is nowadays. Whatever it is nowadays. I don't know if they've added any more or not. But, each and every week is going to be a battle. And but I do like what we've seen thus far. And I think Coach Signetti is pretty happy with that running back room.
And offense is usually comes around a little slower than the defense. Defense is usually you can almost fake it on speed sometimes until you make it, fake it until you make it. But tonight it was the offense looked kind of in sync this early on, and with those three different quarterbacks out there and the running backs and the receivers, they looked like they were in sync. I mean, this is not what they're gonna. You expect them to look like 6 games into the season. Of course, that'd be much better. But it was a little bit. I was a little bit impressed with what they were able to get accomplished tonight, especially those long drives. I mean, those are not easy to get, and if they can pull those off more than once this year, that's what gets you into games, winning games. It's a lot better to be able to score from 80 yards than it is to have to work for it for 8, 9, 10-minute drives all the time.
Yeah, and the biggest thing you said there is finishing. That was one of the big problems last year, was being able to finish offensively when they would have a drive and they would get it down into the red zone inside the 10 and have to come away with a field goal and not get the 7 points. That's going to be the big component moving forward with this team, is to get over that hump. I thought tonight, a couple times when they got it down there, they threw one into the end zone that McCauley caught in the back of the end zone, and then they ran a couple in, which was good to see as well, because you're also going to have to be able to run the football down there as well. So a lot of positives, a lot of things to work on. Good first step. Now you got to see what happens between now and fall and take it from there.
From a coaching perspective, when you leave this tonight, how happy are you? But I know that the coaches have to go back and they have to watch the film. You can't, especially when you're on the field, you've got to get the bird's eye view and run each play back and watch the line play, watch this play, watch that, what failed, what worked, why, this, that, and the other thing. So they'll have to go back and look at all that. But there were a lot of things to be happy about. Being a former coach, what were some of the things that you saw that really kind of stood out?
Well, I said this, I think, this morning on the radio show, is that you're looking for that crisp, clean type of game where you don't see a lot of blown assignments or offsides. Now, was there a couple bonehead offsides? Yeah, there was 2. But I think when Coach Signetti puts on this film and looks at it, I think he'll look at it and say, we look like we're a coach football team. And that's the most important thing. You got kids that know what they're doing, what their assignment is. May not be where they need it to be. But they're in the right direction, and I think that's what he'll come away with, that he feels like, hey, we're getting through to them, we're teaching them the right things. They've got to correct a few things, but as far as the big picture, it looked like a well-coached football team that did things pretty clean and crisp tonight.
And I mentioned Taven Jackson having such a great night, and Kurt Signetti said that he was wondering is his second team offense that much better or the second team defense worse. He goes, I think I know the answer to that, and I think I know what he was thinking as well. The offense looked pretty good. The defense has got to pick up, like you said. They need to add some pieces, but that's what this is for, to see where are you exactly in voids. Where are the voids? Where do you need to get better? for him to be happy knowing that he can go out and take his team to compete in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and I think he alluded to the little bit of this in the press conference. They've already done some recruiting and evaluating the portal, what's in there as of right now. I think they have a pretty good handle what's in there. They're going to take their time. They got spring recruiting where the coaches will be out on the road. And from now until that whenever that June period where it shuts, you're going to see a pretty active portal that Indiana's going to have an interest in to see if they can plug some pieces of the puzzle into what they've got here already tonight.
Yeah, it's crazy that there are guys that are on this roster right now that will not be when fall camp rolls around. And there are guys that aren't on the roster that will be when fall camp rolls around if they can fill in those spots. But like I said, I think that there's great reason to be optimistic if you're an Indiana football fan. I'm not saying, like I said, they're going to go out and win the Big Ten, but they are set up to have a decent season, especially for a first-year coach. And that game at UCLA, that's going to be a barometer. It's a long ways off, right, but that'll be a barometer for people to look at. So, but fun night out here at Indiana's Memorial Stadium.
And it was, like I said, then we'll look forward to following that up as we go through the summer and following the roster changes of any that might come, either in football and basketball. But we've got more Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming up, brought to you by our friends at Hoosier Hanks East, located off of College Mall Road. Hoosier Hanks has an array of custom pizzas, stroms, baked wings, mac bowls, fresh salads, and so much more. You can dine in, carry out, or have Hank cater your next event. Hoosier Hanks East is a great place to watch the games or gather with your team afterwards to use their exclusive party room for your next gathering. Order online at HoosierHanks.com or visit them at 1285 South College Mall Road. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this. Yeah, I disagree that if someone thinks that Conwell wouldn't start, who in the hell is going to start over him? Indiana's biggest gigantic hole in their offense has been three-point shooting, and he shoots 40% for a season. Who's going to start over that? So, but they've got to land him or someone like him. Mackenzie Mbako, I think, is going to do fine. His game really picked up toward the end of the season. And, if you're a follower, you know that Todd Leary has raved about his shooting stroke, and we started to see that toward the end of the season. That is not, I disagree with that Indiana starters are locked. Who would that be? Besides Mbako, Renew, Ballo, Rice, there's 4 out of the 5. I don't think the 5th spot is locked down by. So you're going to start Carlisle over a 40% three-point shooter for a guy who shot 32%. That makes that much sense. Now, they don't have either of those guys right now. All right, we've got about 20 seconds. Yeah, he's expected to land this weekend. And I'll wait till we come back. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this fantastic Friday. I hope everyone's enjoying themselves and ready for a weekend. If you're in the Bloomington area, my advice is to stay away from downtown. It is a madhouse, and last night was crazy. Like I said, when I was coming home from the football game, the people that were out was unbelievable. And then about 5 minutes out of being out of downtown, that rain hit, and I mean it hit, and I'm like, where did all those people go to? So we'll see. Brian says I look like the man playing harmonica, drums, guitar all at once. Yeah, spinning plates and all that. Is that like a monkey? You're not lying. Indiana Creek Walker thinks that Indiana's starters are locked already, including Kanan Carlisle in that bunch, which they don't have him yet, but are expected to land him after the visit this weekend. But we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that is the expected thing to happen. But in no way, shape, or form do I think that why would he be locked into a starter's row if you land Brea, a kid that shot like 2,000% from three, or if you land Conwell, who did shoot 40% from three over the course of 37 something games? That makes zero sense to me. But it doesn't matter because we're talking about hypotheticals. Well, and they may not. That's not the point. They have to land somebody. He says the Indiana's not landing those guys, and that very well may be true, because as these spots fill up, what sucks about today's game is the guys look over and they're like, oh, well, they've got this guy, and I don't know if I want to go in there and fight for that, that's utterly ridiculous, first of all. And secondly, that is not what makes teams better. It's not what makes individuals better. So that's a problem with a lot of today's athletes. They're not willing to fight for the right to start. Ooh, boy, I pulled that one out, huh? Yeah, that was funny. Not really, I guess. Just I thought that. Again, I mentioned AJ Storr to Kansas. Kansas is reloading. They may end up with the top portal class. I'm not sure. Indiana is up there right now for certain. We'll see how they end up. Derby fans, Derby's coming up. 2 weeks from today is the Kentucky Oaks, which yesterday was what they call Thurby, which it runs on Thursday, obviously. And then the Kentucky Derby 2 weeks from tomorrow, which I will plan on being down there and doing the show from Churchill Downs. Then it's the month of May at Indianapolis, as the Indianapolis 500 comes to us about 3 weeks after that. And speaking of the Kentucky Derby, a Kentucky judge denied an injunction requested by Bob Baffert and his crew that would have allowed Baffert-trained horses to run in the 150th running of the Kentucky Derby. They lost that, but an appeal is coming. Like I said, he's had a lot of horses that have found to have been using PEDs, performance-enhancing drugs. So as the discussion rages on the sideline, how's Dekai Newton gonna be? You never know. I mean, don't expect him to be a starter, but haven't seen him play. I don't know. I know he's athletic as hell, but that's what you want. You want competition. Without competition, guys are not going to get better. But they're in better shape without question, depth-wise, than they were last year. So Fun times. Hey, it was a great day. I cannot thank you guys enough for plodding along with me all by my lonesome today. Don't forget, brought to you by our good friend Cheryl Sizemore and Remax Realty. For those of you in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. That's going to wrap it up for us today. Make sure you go to thehoosier.com to keep up to speed with what is happening over the weekend as details come out as far as what's going on with the portal, etc. Big thanks to all of you guys. Without you, we wouldn't have a reason to be here. Thanks to Bob Kravitz. Thanks to Zach Osterman. And thanks to Shannon Griffith for last night as well. And I hope you guys enjoyed that. Until Monday, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.